Hello, this is John McAllister, and today in the John McAllister Report, we're going to go back to Upper Sandusky, my hometown, and we're going to talk with a woman or a young lady from Upper Sandusky. Anna Newell has this very unique ability of making jewelry. And as I said sarcastically and trying to be funny early, it's not costume jewelry. It's not jewelry that you put in two quarters and try to get something out of a slot machine, or it's not like that. She makes the jewelry first herself. She does everything. And she uses kind of her background of loving nature. And she grew up in the country in Wyandotte County. She loved nature. She used to go mushroom hunting. She moved to Montana with a degree in soil conservation and worked with nature out there. So it would only be appropriate that her themes or her subjects center around nature. Anna does a really good job explaining everything, and she sells it. She's been creative, getting her own website and selling online, and which is the thing in 2023. I can promise you that. So if you sit back and enjoy my conversation with Anna Newell, Sable Stone Silver Jewelry is her business. Forgive me here, but through marriages, I'm related to my next guest, Anna Newell. But anyway, I welcome you to my show, former Upper Sandusky girl and back in the area for a while. But before we talk about your Sable Stone jewelry, let's talk about you for just a second. Upper Sandusky girl, when did you graduate?
I graduated in 2011.
2011, and from Upper Sandusky, I think.
Sandusky, Ohio, yep.
And then where did you go from there?
I actually took a year in Athens. I went to Ohio University for 1 year and then ended up moving back and finishing out at Ohio State and graduated from there in 2015. And then shortly after, I moved to Washington to work on an organic apple orchard on the Columbia River. Beautiful. So I spent a year in Washington. And then shortly after, I found myself in Montana in 2017, spring of 2017, for a soils job. That's what I went to school for.
Okay, I read some background, and I'm pretty sure you grew up in the farm.
Yep.
I'm really sure. And then tell me about the farm experience, the country experience, the small town experience. How did that influence you to go to work in Montana and work with nature?
Yeah, so like you said, I pretty much grew up on a farm, spent a lot of time in the woods, spent a lot of time in the dirt, spent a lot of time looking for arrowheads, spent a lot of time gardening, things like that. So I became very interested in soil, just being in the dirt. So I ended up specializing in soil science at Ohio State. I have a bachelor degree in environmental science with a specialization in soil science. And I knew I always wanted to move west. I knew I wanted to be in the mountains at some point in my life. So I started looking for jobs out that way after I graduated, and I ended up with the Forest Service in Northwest Montana, right outside of Glacier National Park. And my entry job was an assistant soil scientist with the Forest Service. And basically, I'd spend all my days in the woods, from hiking to fishing to bushwhacking up mountains, just some really, really crazy work. But it was beautiful. It was awesome. I got to spend my entire summer in the woods out there. It was great. It was really something.
Okay, that's super. And then, I don't care so much why, but then you got into the jewelry. right?
Yes. Yep.
Unless you have some jewelry in front of you.
I do actually.
Show it to me.
So I have, this is a really weird ring that I just made. Other smaller pieces here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them well or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So what if you want to do pictures, that's fine, or I can share too.
What's that?
If you want to do pictures, that's fine, but I have a few pieces here too.
Okay. Anna, tell me about the history or the beginnings of your jewelry, because you make jewelry. And I would have to say, and I think people know this, it's not costume jewelry. You know, it's not something you put 4 quarters in to try to get something out of a gum machine. Your jewelry is really, really nice and really not really expensive, but somebody has to want it.
Yes, definitely.
You see what? And somebody has to want that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about your jewelry making.
Jewelry. So yeah, I started with the Forest Service, and that was a seasonal job out in Montana. The winters are really terrible. Well, not terrible. I love the winters, but a lot of snow,
Right.
really cold, and you can't just be out in the woods hiking through feet and feet of snow. So it's a seasonal job, and I found myself in Whitefish, Montana, the first winter I was there. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job yet. I ended up getting a job, just a part-time as a barista at a coffee shop. But I needed something else. So I was like, well, started thinking, I figured I needed to teach myself something. So I taught myself metalsmithing, which is basically what I'm doing now with jewelry. So that's how I started. And it just kind of started as a hobby. And then people started wanting to buy the things I was making. So I was like, well, maybe I will turn this into an actual job. And by the second year had learned, had taught myself how to do it, I was working full time doing just jewelry.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, tell me if I have this right. It's metalsmithing?
Metalsmithing, yes.
Okay, tell me what metalsmithing is.
So metalsmithing I would define as fabrication with metals, with silver, brass, gold, bronze, anything. So I basically heat and mold and change metal.
Okay. Okay. Now what do I need for equipment to do that?
Oh gosh, I need, so my very, very, gosh, if I had to choose 10 of the most important tools I use, it would be a torch first to heat the metal, a flex shaft, which is basically a glorified Dremel. It's got a really nice motor.
Okay.
And that's for polishing, removing metal, texturizing metal, things like that. I use a lot of metal files. I do a lot of soldering. So not quite welding, but more soldering, but like a step up from like plumber soldering, I guess, or plumber welding. I use a lot of hammers. I use a lot of oh my gosh, a lot of pliers, a lot of cutters.
Okay. Okay, that gives us an idea.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of tools. I have just a mess of tools here.
Okay. Show us one of your pieces of jewelry right now.
Sure, yeah. So the one I have sitting here, actually, I guess I'll show you this one that's on my finger. This is a very strange ring that I made. It's a knuckle ring. It hinges on the finger so that you can move your finger while you wear it. And this was actually showcased in the Battle of the Rings competition in Seattle, Washington this year. I did not win, but it did make it through the first round.
That's really neat. Now, where did you come up with an idea like that?
Oh my gosh. So this is kind of a design I came up with my first year. So yeah, this one I patterned out. There was a lot of math involved in this one because of the hinge and because of the way it fits the finger. So this one I had to make a very specific pattern for. And then of course you'll see the ferns, very inspired by nature and being in the woods and things like that. So
That's okay. That's really good. And then Now, if you make one, and then how many do you make with that? Say
So
if you're,
I like to make 2 or 3 similar things at a time.
okay,
Just because I know usually if someone wants one, there's going to be other people who want the same thing. So usually I make them in batches of 2 to 3, depending on what they are.
but not necessarily cookie cutters, though, right?
No, yes, I always try to do one of a kind. So again, yeah, they'll be very similar and related, but not identical to each other. So a little bit of difference in each piece. Yeah, absolutely. So this is another fern piece here. This is a necklace. Let's see.
There, stop there. There you go. That's perfect.
Is that focusing?
Okay.
With a green stone to kind of help bring out the fern piece. And this is an actual imprint of a real fern. And then I will do, so a similar piece to that, but that's not quite the same, is these are forget-me-not flowers. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, there we
There
go.
you go. There you go.
And then with the blue stone to bring out to mimic the color of a forget-me-not.
Does the blue stone signify anything?
It's called tanzanite, and the reason I use it was just because of the blue color of a forget-me-not, which
Okay. Oh,
these
okay.
are, yeah,
Okay.
these are real forget-me-not flowers, impressions of forget-me-nots. And then the third, so again, I kind of do in batches of 3. I did a lilac as well. Everyone loves lilacs with the pink stone, and that's kind of not picking up well, but
No, that's good.
yeah.
Yes, it's fine.
So those are the most recent pieces that I have made.
Okay, I know. Good, super. And we're not going to go. We don't have time to go into the actually playing around with one of them. I mean,
Okay.
what's the market? You're on the internet. How did you start? I have trouble sometimes. I've done a lot of football stuff, and that wasn't hard. It took a while, but with college coaches and what's your market for this? How do you establish a market?
It was really tough off the get-go.
Why?
I basically started on Instagram, and this would have been in 2020. So right when COVID hit, I started the business in February of 2020. So my options were very limited. I wasn't going to market to sell like art shows or anything like that. So I knew I had to start a business online.
Right.
Or we're going to be looking online to buy things, and I do think that kind of gave me a little kickstart, because I started online, and after COVID, that was what people were doing.
Right.
So I started on Instagram. I started posting a ton on Instagram, and I got a lot of followers that way. So I feel like I have to thank Instagram for the business I have today. But then shortly after, I built my own website through Shopify, which is an e-commerce site. And I've had it since, and I love it, and it's been great. And I don't sell anywhere, other than a few wholesale shops, in Oregon, and I have done one in Michigan too. I only sell online.
Right.
And it's been great. It's worked really well for me.
I think that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Online. I mean, I'm almost 75, but I still online it's where it's at.
Yeah.
Especially once you get established. Okay, now I'm going to put this up here. Sable Stone. Tell me what that means.
It took a long time to come up with that, and I'm still not totally happy with it, but I think it does well for the things that I make. So I started making rings out of really dark river stones, and sable means dark. So, and
Right.
I knew I would start with an S because of stone and silver. So I was looking for synonyms for the word dark, and sable just kind of stuck. And I think that does a good job of covering my style as well, because it's a little bit darker, and it's not as shiny and pretty, and I don't use diamonds. So it's a little rougher and organic. And I think sable does a good job of covering that as well. So,
yeah. And I read one of your definitions where you use the word organic, which I think it's a catching, and sable stone. It's just like, it's something that people will remember. They might think it's a great, some buddy years ago invented it or something like, or found it or something.
That's
I mean,
sounds awesome. I'll take it.
that's a catching, and that's what you have to do.
Hmm.
Something you got to be different than everybody else.
Yeah.
As
Yep.
you know this, I'm not preaching to you, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking time to do this. And how would I go about it? Go online?
Yeah.
Let's don't use the personal thing, but how would I go about it? If I wanted to get a piece of jewelry from you?
Hmm.
How would I go about that?
So I release collections. I usually make 10 to 20 pieces every month, and upload them all at the very same time on my website. And then I will have a specific date and time that I will announce when I will release that month's collection. And then it does kind of get crazy, but this is just the best way I've found to do it and the fairest way that I've found to do it. But everyone gets on at the same time, and basically whoever is fastest gets the pieces that they want. And I've had a few shop updates where things will sell out within 4 minutes. Lately, though, it's been a little bit like things will sell out in a day or two. But it does really help if you are on the website at the exact time that I announce that I will be uploading everything, and you got to kind of battle it out.
That's really good. Now, being confident but guarded confident, how long does it take usually? A day? Do you ever have, now can I come back 3 days after you announce that and do it and check for something?
You always can. Usually there's maybe like one or two stragglers that don't sell within the first day or two. But everything sells pretty quick. I would say 90% of the time everything is gone by the third day, with maybe one or two left over.
Well, that's really good. Really good. Well, thank you very much for being on.
Yeah,
And I got to get your name back there so everybody knows. And I'm sure your generation knows you. And my goodness, you've done a good job with that, especially in not only the creative part, but the marketing part.
It's very important, and the photography I found is very helpful and important too, which I love to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can be creative as heck, but if you can't market, you might as well.
Exactly. I've learned a lot, and I'm happy with how it's going so far. So
that's really neat. Well, thank you very much. Okay.
Thanks, and thank you.